Tammo's Kitchen. Today we are making blood sausage. Yes, you've heard about it, and this is a traditional Estonian dish, and yes, it does have blood in it, so if it's not for you, cool, it's fine, but it is sausage, and you do use intestines as well to put all this in, so getting a little gory, alright, that's just the way it is. So anyway, the first thing we're doing right now is we have just chopped up 12, which is 1 dozen medium-sized onions, some larger, some medium, and we've chopped them very fine. Now we're sauteing them, so let's have a look. Okay, so there you go. So we've put some olive oil in here and salt and pepper, and we are trying to get these guys softened up, translucent basically, and maybe some brownage is okay as well, but it's just going to make them softer and a lot easier to put into the mixture when we're making we call it sisu, which is Estonian for filling, which is going into the sausage. Okay, so to go along with this, you're going to have some meat. We're using pork, and we are using a pork that has a certain amount of fat in it. You need to have fat in sausage. We've told you this in previous sausage videos, but we used a pork picnic shoulder. It was on sale too. It was like $2 a pound, and we got, I think, about 6 pounds. We stripped off some of the fat because it had a pretty good hide of it, which is typical for pork picnic shoulder, and then we boiled it. And you boil it, you throw some bay leaves in there, salt the water a little bit, you boil it for about an hour or so. And what I had was 1 large roast. I cut it up into some smaller pieces in order to get it to cook a little quicker. So basically, there you go. So there's your pork that is now boiled. It shortly is going to go into the meat grinder. And we're going to well, it's going to come out as a very fine product, and you'll see that shortly as soon as I get it set up. Hey, okay, what we're doing is we're going to cut up the pork, and we're going to put it into the grinder and end up with ground pork. Here we go. So we're going to cut pieces. Watch your fingers. Okay, and after all that grinding, about 6 pounds, I'll have to check on the recipe and let you know exactly. But this is what it looks like when it's done. See? Ground pork. That's going into the recipe. I'll let you know the weight shortly. And we're on!
We're on! Am I on?
You are recording.
Okay, welcome to Tammo and HENN's Christmas Sausage Factory. And we're going to be making a batch of traditional Estonian blood sausage. To a recipe that's been in the family for at least 10 generations. So anyway, what I'll do initially is go through the list of ingredients to show that what we put in there. These have been kind of pre-prepared, so we're not necessarily starting from scratch. So I'll go through them one by one. And first item that we have in here is onion, yellow onion that's been chopped and been lightly fried in butter and olive oil. So that was done yesterday. It's cooled down. All ingredients have to be cool for the process, for the stuffing. The second item is pork that's been boiled and ground, kind of a fine grind. The third item that's going in here is smoked bacon. That's also been ground, a little bit coarser than the pork. Then the main ingredient that we had to go and buy in Toronto is blood. Otherwise it wouldn't be blood sausage. Now traditionally the Estonians use pig's blood because the pig was killed before Christmas and the blood was being used for it. This happened to be beef blood, but should work out just as well. And the next ingredient is barley, pearl barley. And this has been boiled in water, and I've added some beef bouillon cubes just to give it a little bit of taste, and a little bit of salt was in there as well. So these are the main ingredients. Next things that we have to address are the spices that go in here. Salt, and we're using the kosher salt in our case. Doesn't have iodine in it. And then the spices, thyme. Now all the spices should be as fresh as possible. Marjoram, which is the kind of key ingredient in these things. In the old days, when spices were hard to come by, marjoram was pretty well used by itself without the other ones. Then we have caraway seeds. That is not normally used, but we're going to put it in there just out of curiosity. And the next spice is oregano. And there's garlic powder. Last but not least, we have black pepper. Ground, obviously. So that pretty well covers the list of the main ingredients that we're putting into the sausages and the spices. Now, we've gone through the list of ingredients. All of these have been pre-prepared. So what we're going to do next is start mixing them together. Now, what we're doing is we're just going to make a half a batch because of the volume involved, and secondly, I mean, if we don't do this right, I mean, we can still salvage the other half. So we're going to start mixing the ingredients together, starting off with the fried onions. So we're going to take roughly half of that. Put it in a big mixing pot. And some of it. Next will be half of the ground pork. I'd say that's pretty close. And half of the smoked bacon. That's the expensive stuff, so people who do this thing on the cheap don't put the smoked bacon in there. And about half of the boiled barley. Tends to clump together a little bit. So, where we're standing right now with the plus sausage is that we have all the basic ingredients mixed up. In other words, the onion, the bacon, the ground pork, and the boiled barley. And we've dry mixed it, so it's pretty consistent. And the next thing that we're going to do is measure out all the spices. And then we'll mix up the spices together before adding it to the dry mix. So the first item that's going in here is the kosher salt, which in our case it calls for a 1/4 cup. And we're putting it in here, and then we're going on to the next ingredient. So we've combined all of the spices, including there's some salt and sugar in there. We're mixing that up well before adding it to the dry ingredients in the pot. There we go. So we'll sprinkle that on top. Right. And then we're going to mix it all together. And all of this is easier done before we add the blood, because once we add blood, the job becomes messy. Now all of the dry ingredients and the spices have been mixed together in the pot, well mixed. And next we get down to the messy stage, which is an addition of the blood, which is really all about. That's all about. Otherwise, it wouldn't be blood sausage. Now, this blood was bought in a frozen state. We thawed it out overnight, and when we're adding it to the dry mix, we're going to run it through either a coarse sieve or could be anything plastic, just in case there are any lumps in it. You don't want those things to end up in the mix, so kind of slowly pouring it through the cooker. Seems to be pretty good. Sure, there's a vegetarian version of this thing somewhere, but we're not getting into it at this stage of the game. So we have that pretty well mixed, and what we're going to do next is just to make sure we have this almost right. We're going to take a small sample of it and form into a patty, and we'll fry it and taste it, and we'll see how it works out with the spices. Like, the one consideration on all of this thing is that this is going to have to go through a sausage stuffer into a casing, and if it's too dry, then we may have a problem with that. So we may have to keep adding water as we go along, because the barley that's in here keeps absorbing the water. So it's kind of a touch and go situation. So we'll try the patty first, and then we'll try stuffing the sausage, see how it comes out. Very likely we'll have to add some water to it.
Okay, so I'm the intermediary here, and what I have to say is make sure you keep your workplace clean and constantly be tidying up with the rag and wiping up areas so that you don't have a big mess. The big thing is that so you don't get confused.
And keep the wine glasses filled.
Yes. See, I have my job today. I'm keeping wine glasses filled, and we're just cooking and having fun. But yeah, you want to keep your area clean. So what we're doing now is, before we actually stuff all these sausage casings, is we want to ensure that our sisu, which is a filling, is actually just right, because otherwise we have to go through a whole whack of sausages and not really like it.
Have to unstuff them all and start all over again.
And those casings can be a real pain in the butt. So what we do is we fry a little bit in the pan, just like that. Incidentally, the people that we normally make the sausages with this year have elected to make their sausages in the frying pan, just like that. And they call them, what are they? They're the blood pancakes, or?
Blood pudding, I guess.
Blood pudding. Yeah, so they're not sausages, so there's no stuffing required, and maybe it's easier. And apparently, a lot of people peel the skin off anyway. They don't eat the skin, because it's intestine, so that kind of gets, oh, so you're eating blood anyway, what's the difference? So
those people just don't have any guts.
Yeah. Oh, he's funny today. No guts. Get it?
This is union rules. Well, you kind of have to pace yourself. Wine and sausages, you can't have too much of one or another.
Good to have a break.
Good to have a break.
Yeah. And while Henn's having a little break, I'm just going to tidy up the kitchen a bit, because like we said before, in all our videos, cleanliness is godliness, and you just gotta, you go to stages. We're ready to start stuffing, but we need to put all the other ingredients away now, and the next thing you know, we'll be stuffing sausages. It's going to be fun.
Right.
Right.
I fully agree with what you said. Right, what we're doing here is cleaning out the intestines to make the casing for the sausages. So when we buy it, it's both salted and frozen. So first of all, we thaw it out, and then to get the salt out, we soak it in cold water and flush it out. That takes all the knots out of it and makes it easier to handle in the next process, which is putting it on the sausage stuffer. And these things are actually quite long, so about 2 or 3 yards at least.
25 yards.
25, well, yeah. So, and it's amazing. Now it's all clean, and we'll just let it flush it out for a little while longer, and we'll let it soak. And then we'll lift it out of here and put it on the sausage stuffing machine.
Run with it.
Ah, okay. Now we get down to the fun part of sausages. What we have here is a mechanized sausage stuffer. It consists of a container into which you put the mixture, and crank operated stuffer, and then we have into the container there's a nozzle that we've threaded the pig's intestine, which is the casing, onto, so eventually all the meat that we prepared will end up in the casing, and as you see later on, then we cut it up or measure into lengths and tie it up. So that's about it. Anyway, we'll get into the details later on. So that's the basic equipment. Okay, and then we go over to the mixing bowl. It has the mixture that we previously prepared. You have to make sure that this thing has sufficient water in it, so it'll flow out of the stuffer. So we'll kind of mix it once more and start filling up the stuffing machine. Now we have the container filled with a mixture, and the nozzle with the casing is on it, and then we put it into the machine. There we go. And the bottom locks into it. Right, and they line the plunger up with a container.
I'm gonna have to do a 90 change on it. So here comes some air. Probably get a little bit of air. No more air. Okay, let's hold it. So here we go. We're now filling up the tubies. And the next batch, I think we don't even need as much water. Because it made it runny for the first little bit. It's good, huh? Hey! Cheers! So we're moving right along here.
So far so good.
So far so good. Look at the...
No blowouts.
Yeah, we got a nice roll going here now, and it's fairly consistent. We're allowing the blood to make sure that it goes homogeneously through the entire coil. What we're going to do next, after this is done, if we got all of it together, we're going to tie it off and then create our links. But right now we're drinking wine, so cheers. Okay, so you've got...
Uh-oh.
I got a blowout. So what you're doing is you're making links, and you're going to make them, I don't know, maybe as wide as your fist if you're a big guy. They're going to be probably about, I don't know, 4 or 5 inches, and you're going to put a string. So basically what you're doing is this. You're actually finding a point, you're twisting it, then you're going to tie it, double knot it. So anyway, we already have 6 links. So the last one gets a double tie, and the reason for that, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It gets a double tie because we want to start a new link. And if you have only one, once you cut it, then you're going to get a blowout and it's going to be all over the place. So we put a double tie. So we put one string, we make enough room, and then we put another string. Okay? Just like that. It's going to go here. Henn's even going to help. What? Demonstrate, please, Henn. Far enough away from this as you can. So way over here.
There we go. Should have been a surgeon.
Yes.
I made some
Look
money
at the
out.
dexterity. Yeah. Okay. So now we're going to cut between the two, like that.
Ah! Okay, so this is where we're at right now. We have the casing stuffed, and we have them tied up into strings of 6 links, each approximately, let's say, 5 inches long. Now the next thing is that we have to heat them, either by putting them into boiling water for 5 minutes, or in our case what we're doing, we have a steamer that we can put the sausages into. Instead of using boiling water, we're using steam. Now, one thing we have to do before putting the sausages into the steamer or hot water is to poke some holes in the casing, because if you don't, the heat will expand and the air pressure will cause a blowout. So what we do is we have a cork with a needle in it, just an ordinary sewing needle, and into each casing we poke about 4 holes. So that lets the expanding air out of it and prevents the sausages from blowing up on you. Okay, so where we're at right now, we've had the sausages. In our case, it's been in a steamer, or you can have them in boiling water. They recommend a minimum of 5 minutes. We're keeping it for 8. And we're not trying to kind of fry them or boil them. What the heat does, it kind of sets the blood, so it makes the sausages kind of semi-cured and stiff. So they've been in there for about 8 minutes in the steam, and this is what they look like. They certainly change color. Now we're going to take them out of here, and initially we're just going to put them on a cookie tin, just to let them initially cool down. And I kind of have to be fairly careful in taking them out so you don't burst them. They're still quite soft. Spread them out in one layer, and we'll leave them here for 15-20 minutes until they cool down a bit, so you can handle them. So we've taken the sausages out of the steamer and put them on a cookie sheet to cool them down a little bit so you can handle them. And the next thing you have to do is hang them for a while, let them cool down all the way, and then they'll also dry. So what we have here is a couple of expensive dining room chairs with silk upholstery and an old broomstick hanging between them. And highly suggested, so you don't ruin the carpet, you put a piece of tarp on the floor. And when you take the sausages, and about halfway, you hang them up, and let them cool down and let them dry. So about halfway, yes, sir. So there we go. Leave them up here until they're completely cooled.
And then what do you do?
Then you have to look for friends how you get rid of the sausages.
Call a friend.
We're pretty well ready with the sausages to either eat or put them in the fridge or to freeze for future use. If you freeze them, they're good for about 6 months. I've eaten them after a year, not gladly, but I've eaten them. Here's to a successful day of making Christmas sausages.
Cheers!
Tomorrow we're going to hang them up on the tree, and we'll stand around singing the carols.
Yes.